Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Hey, during the build-up to Rocha versus Santillan, right? There were some members of, I think it was Rocha's team, and also some members of Santillan's team who were discussing the rematch with Earl Spence and Crawford. And there were some consistencies between what they were saying and kind of what we're out here, I think what we're anticipating. The wait for the rematch, right? Because, they got some guys out there, I call it, boots on ground, who are right there in the thick of things, and they hear stuff. And what both sides were saying is that Earl Spence and Terrence Crawford, the rematch is going to be at 154. They weren't talking about contracts or nothing like that. They were saying that's the rumor, that both of them are cool to fight at 154. All this talk about Crawford trying to make Spence melt down to 147, they're saying there's no truth to that, at least from what they've heard. But what they went on to say is that essentially this is just going to be a money grab for both Spence and Crawford. And, I'm going to tell you this right here. You could call it a money grab if you want, but I think that both of them have earned the right to push for the rematch and make another 8-figure payday. Because outside of fighting each other, I'm not really sure where either one of them can go and make that kind of money. I mean, you could always say, hey, they could go, up a couple weight classes, and there's a couple of huge opportunities there, but we have a lot of conversation here, and then there's a whole lot of, fantasy talk as well. But when we come back to reality, as far as what is tangible, that Earl Spence and Crawford is something that can happen. Excuse me, I have a cold. Crawford going up to Earl Spence and Crawford happening at 154 can happen. Crawford and Zoo is something that is, it's in play, right? This was being talked about in the Australian sports media about the WBO giving Crawford the green light basically to go and challenge Tim Tszyu for the WBO strap. Crawford fighting Jermell Charlo, that's realistic. So when we kind of keep the conversation around reality, look, it does make sense to see Crawford and Spence happen at 154. And my understanding is Crawford will keep his belts at 147. But I'm going to tell you this right now. I truly believe Crawford is okay making sure he gets the Spence fight off at 154. The sanctioning bodies are cool with him keeping all of his straps at 147, not worried about the mandatories because they understand he has a contractual obligation to fight Earl Spence. And after he fights Earl Spence, he'll still have his belts at 147. He'll bubble up and challenge Tim Tszyu because Jermell's getting hit with mandatories. And then what we could see after the Tim Tszyu fight is Crawford against Jermell Charlo if the stars line up, which they should. Because I don't think there's a concentric few who feel that Earl Spence is going to show up in the rematch and that Earl Spence did not show up in the first bout. And to that I gotta say, look, I like Earl Spence too. We talk a lot on this channel. I bounce from subject to subject, fighter to fighter. But one thing I want to make sure that I'm clear on, I'm not making any jokes or anything right now, is I like Earl Spence. Earl Spence can fight. But if there's anyone out there who feels like, no matter what version of Earl Spence that showed up for that first fight with Crawford, I just don't see how anyone can think that Spence can go back, rebuild, and devise a game plan, a strategy that's going to help him earn a win against Crawford in their rematch. I'm not saying that to like the young boys. Hey, he's hating, man, he's hating. I'm not taking it to the stupid. I'm just being real. You know, because my thing is, what is it that you saw that you felt Earl Spence can come back now to the drawing board and go into a rematch with Crawford and exploit? Excuse me. Excuse me, got a little cold. So that's my question. What is it that you all are seeing that I'm not seeing? Because I'm gonna tell you right now, I want to give more credit to Earl Spence. Now, do I think he can make the fight a bit more interesting? Yeah. I mean, try to box, try to move more, but that's just not in his nature. It's like when Buddy McGirt got involved with Arturo Gatti. He had him out there trying to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee because Gotti could box. But that wasn't his nature. And as soon as he got binged, Gotti went back to scrapping. And Earl Spence is the same thing. That's just not, he can do it, but that's not in his nature. He likes to scrap. And he told you, when he gets in the ring, he's stepping. And he kept stepping and stepping to Crawford, even though he was getting, destroyed. He kept stepping to him. So that being said, Spence and Crawford, the rumors are growing, but the people I'm hearing talk about it and the way they're talking about it, I tend to believe there's some truth to that. The rematch is going to happen at 154. Crawford will keep his belts at 147. I think Crawford wants to make sure he keeps those belts, especially that WBO strap, because after he gets through Spence, which is what I'm predicting is going to happen, he'll hopefully fight Zoo. He should get through Zoo. And after that, talk about a build-up to Jermell Charlo for undisputed at 154. And now Crawford has the opportunity to become a 3-time undisputed. And I think it's great because I just think when you have, the opportunity, which for him would be 2 fights for 4 belts. Normally I call it the 4-for-1 deal, 4 belts, 1 fight. But he's getting 4 belts for 2 fights because he got to fight Zoo, who'll pick up a strap at 154, then go fight Jermell, who has the other 3. So to pick up all 4 belts at 154, he's got to get 2 fights in. But that being said, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans, all 7 continents. And what I'll say is, take the emotion out of it. If you're an Earl Spence fan, cool. If you're a Terrence Crawford fan, cool. If you're a Tim Tszyu fan, great. But look at how everything played out. You can't tell me that the stars aren't lining up for Terrence Crawford and Jermell Charlo. Look at it. Everything's pushing that direction. It's not pushing for Terrence Crawford and Canelo. It's pushing for Crawford and Jermell. Jermell went up to fight Canelo. They took his WBO belt. I think all this is discussed and planned. I'm always talking about the secret society. I definitely think that was all part of the game plan. I think they, key decision makers and those behind the scenes, sat back and said, hey, this is how it's going to play out. We'll take Jermell's belt. He'll go up and fight Canelo. It's a win-win for him. Even if he loses, it's a win, okay? And then Jermell will come back down. He'll face a mandatory. And during that time, hopefully, Spence and Crawford had their rematch. And then Crawford goes into a fight with, Tim Tszyu. Maybe Jermell has another fight. And then at the end of the year, you get Crawford against Jermell Charlo. And I just feel like that's the direction it's going. But that being said, we'll see if the rumors are true. But, sometimes you can poke holes in things. But for me, when I look at it, kind of hard for me to poke holes in it. Saying Crawford's going to fight Spence at 147, I could kind of poke some holes in that. I mean, I think everybody was struggling with the idea of Crawford drawing the line in the sand on Earl Spence saying, hey, we're going to do the rematch at 147. Crawford doesn't strike me as the kind of guy. He's very appreciative of Earl Spence giving him an opportunity. to basically make history a second time. I couldn't see him not giving Earl Spence an opportunity at history himself at a weight that he's more comfortable. That being said, we'll see. And I'm gonna tell you right now, don't nobody know but the fly on the wall. But some of those guys who are talking about it, they're much more closer to those conversations than I am and anybody out here talking boxing is. But those guys who are talking about it, they would have an idea. They would have some kind of inclination on the direction things are going, because their fighters are at 147. Their fighters are right there in these positions to get a shot at somebody big. So they're going to be enlightened on what's developing behind the scenes. Because remember, these sanctioning bodies, these promoters and managers, they have fighters, man, and fighters want to know, hey, what's next? What's going on? Why can't I get this fight? So I'm sure that they're not going to come out and divulge all the specifics, but they're going to give them a little bit to say, hey, relax. Let's quell this chaos before it gets out of control. This is what's going on. These are the moves. Let's see how things play out. That way, at least the fighters and other people involved and parties of interest, they have an idea of what's going on, so they tend to settle down. They may not agree, but at least they can understand. And I can't see anyone not understanding the fact that, one, it has to be a rematch, and then two, at 154 and allowing the cards to fall, however they may. That being said, man, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans. More to come on Crawford, Spence, 154, the belts, everything, right? In the breeze.